very topical. Welcome. Have we switched on?
Yes, everybody.
Have we got people online?
Yes.
Yes, good. Well, good morning. Welcome to the third Stakeholder Day that we've held with ESIG. Today we're hopefully going to focus on the chemical strategy for sustainability. For those of you who don't know me, I'll be amazed if there's anybody who doesn't know me over these years. My name is Rob Oates. I'm a senior product steward at Shell Chemicals, and I'm currently your chair of CEFIC. So welcome. Just a few housekeeping rules that I've been asked to say to you. First of all, there's obviously health and safety, the fire, if there's no alarm planned today, but if there is one, we follow our CEFIC colleagues. I think they're outside, then down the stairs, don't use the lifts, and they'll take us to the muster points outside. So thank you very much for that. Do's and don'ts, which we always thank you, Cornelia. So as I'm sure, again, we're all very familiar with the do's and don'ts on these occasions. Some of us are competitors, and so, you know, we're all talking about the science and everything, and nothing about production and prices and transport and everything like that. So, and again, but if anybody feels uncomfortable with straying into those areas, I'm sure we won't, but if we do, then please hold up your hand and we can move on swiftly. Cornelia has asked me to just say that the mics are very sensitive here, so, and they will pick up anything. So if you say anything nasty about me, then make sure you don't say it in the microphone, but make sure they're all, I think we've all turned them round.
Yeah, so if you want to speak later on, you just turn them back. That's it.
Turn the microphone back to you and then turn them. So thank you. Also for the participants online, welcome. We've got lots of you, so that's fantastic. And if you want to speak or ask questions at appropriate times, then put your hands up, and my wonderful CEFIC team here will hopefully liaise and give you some time to ask questions. We are recording today, and we'll discuss later with the presenters and everything, you know, what we can and can sort of publish if there's anything that's sensitive. So thank you. I hope we have a good morning session. I'd now like to hand over to Alan de Heers, who is your chair of SFOC. Welcome, Alan. So if you would introduce the rest of the proceedings, I'd be very grateful.
Thank you, Rob. It's nice to open this meeting face to face, not like
absolutely.
Online. So thanks a lot. In fact, we will start the event with an introduction from the European Commission and with DG Environment to set the scenes, look at the broad pictures. And then from ESIG, you and Cornelia will give a brief overview on your activities. And it will be followed by a panel discussion managed by Sylvie, featuring representatives from several solvent using companies. So I would like to introduce our first speaker, Sylvain Vintain, who, if you don't know me yet, is team leader on chemicals at DG Environment. That's the unit B2, if I'm not wrong. So related to safe and sustainable chemical in the scope of the circular economy. So I understand that you got quite a long list of questions already to prepare today. And so we will be very keen to hear about you, Sylvain. So the floor is yours.
Need to press any button or it's...
No, yes,
no. Voilà. Yeah. So hello, good morning.
Welcome.
So indeed, I will try to cover the different items that you asked me to cover. I'm more familiar, obviously, with REACH and CLP, on which I'm currently, at least for REACH, drafting the proposal. And for CLP, it was already submitted and published. And I will do my best to cover also there's an echo.
Yeah, it's gone.
It's gone. So I will also cover the one substance, one assessment and SSDB as far as I can. And there are a few questions that you've asked, but perhaps we will keep that question for the Q&A, I assume, even if perhaps I will answer some of them on, during my presentation. So what I put in red, it's what I will try to cover today. And as you can see, there is a lot of things that I will not speak about it, and that's related to the implementation of the strategy. At least from our unit, we are also working currently on the discussion about the export ban on chemical ban in the EU. So this is an ongoing discussion, but I will not discuss that today. But I will cover the rest. So we can move to the next one, and I will start with CLP. As you are probably aware, we took the decision to split the CLP revision in two legal acts. The first one, it's a delegated act aiming to introduce new hazard classes in CLP. We consulted very broadly on that proposal before drafting it. So we had a lot of hierarchical discussion, but also subgroup hierarchical discussion, in particular for the new hazard classes on endocrine disruptors, both for human health and the environment. So we've adopted the Commission level this proposal in December, so quite recently, and it will be submitted to TBT notification, and is now ongoing scrutiny period in the Parliament and the Council. So we will see what will happen with this scrutiny, but so far we did not hear anything. And if everything is going well with this scrutiny, it will be published March or April this year. We are extended the transitional period compared to what was foreseen in our proposal to 24 months for substance and 42 months for mixtures. The next step after the publication is to develop a guidance. So it was a clear request from your side to be able to properly implement the obligation for you to assess your substance and mixtures. And see if they should be classified with regard to the new hazard classes. So the new hazard classes are endocrine disruptor for human health and environment. So this is two hazard classes, and we have one new hazard class for PBT and VPVB, and a new hazard class for persistent, mobile, and toxic, and very persistent and very mobile. PBT and VPVB is almost very similar to what we have in Annex 13. What is probably very new for you, it's category 2 for endocrine disruptors, because we already had some criteria for pesticides and biocides for category 1, and it's more or less similar to that one. And what is clearly new, it's the new concept of mobility. And I think that most of the main challenge for us when drafting the guidance, obviously with the help of ECHA and with the involvement of experts from industry, NGOs, and member states, of course, will be to discuss the mobility, and in particular, how we can use, for example, leaching study. For the timing, the mobility is based on KOC in our proposal, but we are open to use other method. If from this method we can derive a KOC, that is the criteria. So the next slide, yeah, it was mainly, I always present that one, but it's ready to present what is the situation today, when some of the properties or effects are assessed in different regulatory framework. For example, for PBT is done in pesticides, in biocide, but also in REACH. So the idea in the future will be to introduce all of this in only one regulatory act, it's CLP. So for the future, the next slide, you will see that there is nothing outside the cycle. So, and then I try to explain what could be from after the CLP and REACH revision, in particular related, for example, to the extension of GRA, so generic risk management approach, to new hazard classes compared to today that it's limited to CMR. So we want to extend it to endocrine disruptors, sensitizer, respiratory sensitizer, and STOT, and potentially with also PMT and VPVM. as you can see, it's category 1, at least for the generic risk management approach. It's not category 2. On the next slide, I will move to what we already presented to UNGHS. So it was promised to as soon as possible to propose at UN level to work on the new hazard classes. And this was discussed very recently, so in December. And it was agreed to start the work already with the ongoing biennium. In particular, we have to reflect about how we want to work on the endocrine disruptors. And the first discussion will start next week with I don't remember the name of this group, working group, let's call it like that, at UN level. And the first task will be to define a mandate that we want to give to the OECD to start the discussion. So OECD will be deeply involved, in particular for endocrine disruptors. Personally, I don't know if we will need OECD for the persistency and bioaccumulation, but perhaps we will need them for mobility. So this will be the aim of the discussion that I said will start next week, I think. The first meeting is already, it's correspondence group. So the first meeting is foreseen. There's a lot representative of industry. And I have to say that it's not well balanced today because there is no NGOs, environmental NGOs, because there is no environmental NGOs or consumer NGOs represented at UN. So I asked them to ensure that they could participate to have a balanced discussion, because if I think it's 20 experts from industry, few from member states, and a CAN commission. So I think it could be good to have a better balance in the participation. So it's where we are at the UN level. So after this first discussion about the mandate of OECD, we will see if the subcommittee in July accept that mandate, and then the work will start really after that. We are quite optimistic to be able to perhaps conclude on the PBT, PMT, and so on by the end of 2024. So for the ongoing biennium, most probably for endocrine disruptors, we will need more time. So we can expect at least 2 biennium for the endocrine disruptors. At least it's our feeling, our guess. Let's see what will happen in reality. Now moving to the ordinary legislative procedure. So it's co-decision. So it's what we submit to the Parliament and to the Council, also at the end of December. So we, as you know, we perform an impact assessment, also for the delegated act, by the way. The impact assessment has been published in parallel to our proposal for the legal act, so the 19th of December. It's a huge document. And based on this impact assessment, we were able to identify 3 problem areas that we want to tackle and modify and propose modification in the CLP in order to ensure a better adequate classification for critically hazardous chemicals, to improve hazard communication, and to remove some legal gaps and ambiguities in the current CLP text. The discussion at the Council already started. The first working party took place yesterday. So we went through all our proposal, and then we will start article by articles discussion, most probably by the end of February. We still have to provide all linguistic version to the Council, and then they can start their work. I cannot provide you with any feeling about how our proposal was received by member states, because yesterday it was mainly silent because we have to scrutinize the text. But some indication demonstrate that perhaps the proposal is okay. But of course, when we move to detail, we'll see some issues that the member states want to discuss. So what is proposed in the legal text in a nutshell? So the first problem that we identify is to ensure adequate classification of critically hazardous chemicals. So critically, it's mainly the one that let's say could be subject to generic risk management in the REACH. So the new hazard classes on top of the CMRs and respiratory sensitizer and potentially stored. So we introduce a prioritization for the new hazard classes in the CLP for harmonized classification. So ensuring that member states, industry, and the Commission will focus on this on top of CMRs and respiratory sensitizer on these hazard classes when they will submit harmonized classification to the system. Why we want to prioritize is we really want to, at least in the future of REACH, focus on, in particular on consumer uses, and to ensure that, in particular mixtures for consumer will not contain critical hazardous chemicals. So it's why we would like to push and member state, but also us, Commission, to develop more harmonized classification dossier for these hazard classes. And therefore, we are proposing to give the Commission the possibility to initiate harmonized classification dossier, and then we'll ask ECHA to develop such a dossier. At the last minute, we have been asked by DG Santé also to give the possibility for EFSA to develop dossier, most probably for substance use in their legislation, so food additive, for example, or pesticides. We are also in phases the possibility to develop harmonized classification dossier for groups of chemicals. As you know, we would like to move more and more to a grouping approach to be more efficient, but also to limit animal testing. So grouping will become a kind of a standard, both in CLP, but also in SVHC, potentially in registration. Obviously, for polymer, we want to go for a grouping approach, and we will see how we can also include more grouping in the registration of non-polymeric substances. What I don't remember what was on the.
I don't know what happened. Sorry. Yeah, they are not moving. It's not. Ah, no.
Oh, there we go.
Then what we've also introduced in our proposal, it's a direct listing into Annex 6, so CLP, of the substance that have been identified as SVHC for endocrine disruptors category 1 and for PBT and VPVB. So this is an automatic procedure because, as I said, we follow the Annex 13 criteria for PBT and PPVB, and we already identify EDs based on existing criteria in pesticides and biocide. I will detail our proposal for MOX later on, and we also clarify that bridging principle can also be based on the weight of evidence approach. In terms of CLP inventory, we are adding some obligation to notifier to explain why there are some diverging classification between different notifier, in particular related to what is registered. And we're also giving the obligation to make the name of notifier publicly available. And we clarify also the obligation to update the notification when the self-classification has been modified, and this should be done within 6 months. On the MOX, I will not use MOX anymore because we have been asked by our jurist linguist to not use MOX because it cannot be translated in some languages like Swedish, Danish, and potentially German. So we use now multi-constituent substances, and we know that this can be problematic, in particular that it's already used, but for different purposes. So, for example, currently in REACH and to some extent in CLP, multi-constituent substances do not cover UBCBs. But okay, let's see how we can solve that specific issue. So we are proposing a definition for multi-constituent substances. It's a substance containing more than one constituent. So the problem that we've discussed in Caracal since almost now 2 to 3 years, that we believe that for some we would like to apply it as the same approach as for mixtures. And we believe that from a toxicological point of view, multi-constituent substances are very similar to mixtures because they are composed by two or more substances or constituted. As said, we believe that for some endpoint, like CMRs today, it's difficult to use a test performed on the mixtures, except if the outcome of the test is positive. And the proposal is to extend what we are currently having for CMRs to some of the new hazard class, so in particular for endocrine disruptors properties for both human health and the environment, and also to extend to persistent and mobile. We already have this for bioaccumulative properties because it's difficult, for example, or almost impossible to perform a BCF test on the mixtures. And we believe it's the same for multi-constituent substances. And the same for persistency and mobility. So the aim is to for these chemicals and for these properties that we use the constituent approach. So we'll base the classification on the basis of how the constituents are classified. So the next slide. So we did not perform an impact assessment because this approach is already part of the CLP guidance, so it should already be implemented properly. But we wanted to make it very clear, so it's why now we are proposing it to introduce that in the legal act and to ensure also consistency. The next slide. I wanted to highlight how the legal text has been developed, and in particular, that is probably what is very interesting for you, is that we give the possibility to deviate from the multi-constituent approach and for the mixtures approach for specific case that still need to be listed in Annex 1. So specific case could be, for example, a generic one, saying that if you have a multi-constituent containing constituents that are very similar from a chemical point of view, then probably you can perform a test on that multi-constituent or that multi-constituent substances. This could be one of the generic specific cases. Another specific case could be that for a specific group of chemical, you believe, industry, that it's better to use the information obtained on the substance, on the multi-constituent, instead of using the constituent rules. Therefore, if such issue appears, you will have to develop a dossier, demonstrated why you believe we should base the classification on the result of the multi-constituent substances for a group of chemicals. This scientific dossier will then be submitted to ECHA, and we expect that RAC will be mandated to look at this dossier. And based on the RAC opinion, we will develop, if necessary, and if we agree with the RAC opinion, an amendment of Annex 1 to include that specific cases. In the next slide, I don't need to go too much in detail because it will take time, but I try to exemplify by taking one example, endocrine disruptors, how the logic will be. So you can have a look, and most probably this will be subject to a lot of discussion in the co-decision. So we'll most probably come back on that, but it was mainly for you to be informed about the logic. What I did not include in the slide, it's what I just said about how we will include in the next one specific cases, but I express it orally, so I don't need to repeat in the slide. But the slide is mainly about the logic about which information you should use when you have a multi-constituent substances. On the next slide, I want to address how we are trying to improve the hazard communication. And it's mainly based on two main issues that the CLP has been developed in a while ago, in 2008. And since then, the market changed a little bit its habit with online sales, with refill approach. So we have to adapt. So we are addressing the concept of refill sales to give the possibility for labeling derogation in some very specific case. So mainly to to mild hazard only. So not for substances, for example, that are acute tox. It's mainly for consumer, this proposal for refill cells. We are trying to increase the readability of CLP labels by providing obligation for size, format, the color, and so on. And so to ensure that user can properly read a label. Today, I mean, it's a big problem that it's very difficult. We are trying to initiate an approach linked to digital labeling. You will be most probably disappointed when reading the proposal because it's a low, for the timing, very low ambitious proposal. But we are providing a framework to increase the possibility to use digital labeling only for some specific aspect of the labels, in order to also to limit information on the physical label and to transfer it to a digital labeling approach. So this will be a stepwise approach. Today it's very low ambitious, but we hope that in the future we can add more on digital labeling only compared to physical labels. What is quite interesting for you is that we will increase the possibility to use fold-out labels. Today it's very limited for very specific product, like small product, but also for products that are very specific shape. So it will not be any more derogation, but the fold-out label will become more standard. So the fold-out label will allow you, for example, to put in that labels all language and not only limited to 1 or 2 languages. And then also for the specific case for product sold to consumer in bulk form like fuels, we are giving derogation for labeling and also for very small packaging like writing instrument that is not an article but container containing mixtures. About the main legal gaps and ambiguities, we are trying to tackle the online sales. So this is a new concept, so we hope that it will be well perceived and useful and efficient, but it's at least it's a first proposal, so let's see what will happen on that. For that, we need to introduce a responsible actor for import to cover online sales from third countries in particular. We are clarifying when the label need to be updated when there's a new classification. And we're also clarifying the obligation for relabelers, rebranders, and distributors to notify to present center under Article 45. That wasn't clear, so we want to clarify that aspect. I think there I can move to REACH. As you know, we are currently revising REACH. We received a positive opinion from the Regulatory Scrutiny Board in November. So now we can move to the legal drafting. On registration, what we want to do is to obtain more information, in particular for the more critical hazard classes like chronic toxicity, but also endocrine disruptors, allowing us to ask or to introduce an obligation for industry to perform a chemical safety report at 1 ton level. We also want to register polymer, so polymer of concern. We are most probably will implement a stepwise approach, starting with low molecular weight polymers and then moving to the high molecular weight polymer. But I don't have time to detail what we want to do, but it will be a stepwise approach with first a notification, allowing ECHA to develop criteria to group polymers, and that you will then use this criteria to group polymer together and to provide a dossier for group of polymers that will be sent to ECHA, at least for the type 1 polymer, 7 years, for example, after the entry into force of the new REACH. We'll try to obtain more information on use and exposure at registration step, but also later on in the process. I will come back on that. And then we want to introduce a mixed use assessment factors. Most probably the value will be 5 for both human health and the environment. And we want to limit at the first step only to HPV to test the system. I said we want to obtain more information, but we are trying also. But we are trying to limit as much as possible animal testing. So we will really push for what we call NAM, new assessment methodology. And this is, for example, what we would like to add at Annex 7. So we believe that the information on toxicokinetic is fundamental, in particular for you to be able to develop grouping and read across. So it's why we are now asking more information on toxicokinetic. And the quantisutors, we are trying to limit the request to NAM, so no in vivo. But we are discussing the possibility still to use, so mainly on in vitro, sorry, or limited in vivo, but we are still discussing the possibility to trigger some in vivo still at Annex 7 to be discussed. For BCF, we are trying to stop asking animal BCF and to rely only on NAM for bioaccumulation. So this will be discussed at ECA, PBT expert group, and it's really we really want to move to no animal testing on BCF. We believe we are ready for that, but of course we have to accept that also for definitive conclusion on B, we will use NAM and not animal testing. So this is something that you have to work on and reflect on when you will be involved in the discussion at the ECA PBT expert group. For acute fish toxicity, we also want to rely on mainly in vitro. The same most probably for acute tox for human health. In vitro, yes. So really moving to non-animal testing as much as possible, at least for low tonnage. We have been asked you asked me to present GRA, what we have in mind. So GRA, it's a generic risk management approach. It's something that already is in reach for consumer mixtures, for CMRs, but also for potentially for articles, for consumer uses. We've already used it, for example, for textile, for articles. And as you know, every year, we are adding new substances in entry 28 to 30, new substances that are newly classified for CMRs, category 1. So what the strategy is asking the Commission to propose is to extend that approach to new hazard classes, so endocrine disruptors, PBT, VPVB, but also immunotoxicant, neurotoxicant, respiratory sensitizer, and STOT. What we are looking at also is to extend that approach to professional user. There we are still reflecting about which professional user we want to cover in that generic risk management approach. The concept of essential uses will be introduced most probably under generic risk management approach, and the idea is to give the possibility to derogate, but only for essential uses. So, as I said, there's a lot of ongoing reflection. You see there are some question mark on which hazard classes we want to start with, which professional user we want to cover. So the idea is to consult still on that specific aspect, and we aim to develop an implementation plan, and therefore we need to have a discussion at Caracal level. So we would like to initiate a discussion by March in Caracal to discuss with stakeholders, member states, about a kind of a stepwise approach. So first, we will say that we want to prioritize, obviously, consumer, and in particular, consumer mixtures. But we'll continue to work on some very specific consumer articles. The next one will be childcare articles, for example, for which we've already asked ECA to work on. We would like to discuss the stepwise approach for the hazard classes. So, do we want to start with endocrine disruptors, or do we want to start with neurotoxicant, for example? So this is something that we would like to discuss. We would like to also discuss which articles we would like to tackle, and if we can define generic criteria, for example, start with or focusing mainly on articles for which there is exposure. And generic risk management approach, it's a risk-based approach, it's not a hazard-based approach. So we still have some exposure to be able to go in that direction. So most probably one criteria will be related to exposure, and perhaps daily uses articles or articles that are used by vulnerable people, like childcare articles with kids and baby. We'll potentially propose some example. And I say we would like to initiate a discussion about which professional user we would like to cover in the graph. Potentially the consumer, like professional, like cleaning people, for example, but perhaps not the one that are very similar to workers working in industry. So you will be able to provide your view in Caracal, so by the end of March, on that specific aspect about the implementation plan of GRA. So it will be very similar to this restriction roadmap that we developed recently. On the next slide, it's about the reform on the restriction, but also authorization. So what we would like to do is really to inform you as early as possible to increase predictability, the substance that could be subject to regulatory action. So even before registry of intention, we would like that you are informed about the willingness of member states or commission to work on a specific substance. And this will be done under the one substance, one assessment ongoing discussion. What we would like also to introduce is an obligation for downstream user to submit more information about their uses, the volume, and potentially about assessment of alternative. And this we would like to do it focusing mainly for some specific substance, and most probably the substance that could be listed in the candidate list for SVHC, but can be over regulatory list. The aim of that information is to be able to have a better decision later on when we will take a decision about which tool we would like to use for to regulate a specific substance. Tool or tools, we can still use several tools for the very same substance. So the aim is to have a better and more informed, but also a more collegial decision. So try to ensure that member states will discuss together with Commission, ECHA, and other agency about what is the most relevant approach for a specific substance. And based on this additional information that will be obtained via downstream user, we believe that we can better decide about which tool we want to use, so to avoid that we receive 1,000 of application requests for a specific substance. We also would like to simplify and accelerate the restriction and authorization procedure. So there we would like to use essential uses for that, so in a positive way. We would also like to use the possibility for a derogation of general applicability, so for authorization. And another concept that we would like to introduce is to upfront exemption by authorities. So perhaps we will be able, for example, to when a substance we've identified essential uses, we can propose that therefore for that specific essential uses, there is no need to submit an application for authorization, or there is a derogation for restriction. So this is something that we are reflecting on this upfront exemption by authorities. Or by authorities could be member states when developing a restriction dossier, or Commission when developing an Annex 14 proposal. So the timing for REACH. So we've worked quite hardly in the last, very hardly in the last few years, and now based on the impact assessment positive opinion, we are ready to update, to develop the new legal act. As you know, it has been postponed to Q4 2023, but we'll see. If we are ready before the summer, we will submit it to the Parliament and the Council, and then we'll see what they will do with it. Most probably, we will also we'll propose Comitology Act for some issue like data requirement, math, like the mail as well. But we don't know yet about the timing. So it could be in parallel to the proposal for REACH revision. It could be before, it could be after, to be discussed. But most probably we will go via comitology for some proposal. In particular, for example, for alternative method to animal testing. Next slide. Yeah, then I will speak about the safe and sustainable by design. So you are probably well aware about what is it. So the idea is really to reduce harmful impact to human health of environment of chemical and materials. So the scope of SSBD is to focus on chemicals and material, not too much on the product, on the final product, even if at the end it will still be part of the assessment, the product. So the next slide is to explain what are the expected application and impact of the SSBD. So it's to steer innovation toward the green industrial transition, and also the substitution approach, so to substitute and minimize the production of substance of concern. So there you see it's not limited to substance of very high concern. So we have the concept of substance of concern, that it's a broader group than the substance of very high concern. That definition has been included in the what we call in the past SPI. I don't remember now what is the new name of the SPI.
ESPR, no? Yes, the eco-design and
eco-design, yeah. So that definition you will find of substance of concern, you will find it in our proposal on this eco-design proposal that was called before SPI. And the idea is to minimize the impact on health, climate, and environment of chemicals and materials. So this will be done via research and initiative. So we have a strategic research and innovative plan for chemicals and materials. But I will not cover that aspect in the presentation today. Other initiative going in the same direction about substitution and so on. So the green claims, the taxonomy, green public procurement, and so on. I have to be fast because.
No, it's fine. That's okay.
So there are two steps in the SSDB. The first stage is about the redesign. So we provide guiding design principles to support the use of safe and sustainable design of chemicals and materials. And also there is a stage about safety and sustainability assessment to ensure the safety of and stability of the chemicals or material in question. So, and the next slide will explain very briefly the different steps that need to be assessed in that safety and sustainability assessment. So the first it will be at the production stage of the chemicals and materials, but also at the second step on the production and processing phase on the materials or the substance, and then also at the use step. So where you can see that consumer will be assessment on consumer will be done, but also so it's where I was saying that final product will still be part of the assessment, because we have to do the life cycle assessment that will cover the end product and in particular the emission of the substance in the environment via this end product. So for step to be assessed, the next slide it explains so the current situation. So the proposal, the recommendation has been adopted in December. We propose a reference assessment framework for SSDB. It is addressed to member state, industry, and research and technology organization. And what is very important, that's what I wanted to highlight, we need to test the proposal. And then we need to improve it and change it if necessary. So therefore, we are expecting feedbacks, particularly from industry, but also from other stakeholders. And is why we are currently organizing workshop. So the next slide. A workshop will take place in February, when we will show what has been done by GRC, because they did the test, the proposal for specific cases. So plasticizer, surfactant, and flame retardant. So you can still participate to that meeting, but if you are not yet registered, you can still participate online. It looks like a very popular meeting. So I think it's more than 700 people that will participate, mainly online, obviously. So we will welcome if you can participate to that meeting, but also if you will be interested to perhaps to test the system with Solvents, for example, in your specific case. This is the current situation. So we are really open to revise our proposal, but for that we need your input. And based on this input discussion, we are ready to revise the criteria by 2025. I will move to one substance, one assessment that cover different rule and practice. So the first one is linked to initiation of regulatory action. And this is the current situation today. There's plenty of legislation dealing with chemicals, with different initiatives by member states, commission, and so on, and at different times, so there is no real coordination. We want to improve that. The allocation of tasks, some substances are discussed in different agencies with potentially some different conclusion, different expert group, and so on. So we want to modify that. We want to also to increase the availabilities format of data that are currently going in all direction, and also the same with methodology. So this is today. This is what we expect to achieve in the future. So synchronized and coordinated initiation of regulatory action, and to increase the use of a grouping approach. In terms of allocation, to clearly allocate tasks or responsibility on agencies. A better use of the expertise and a better governance and cooperation between agencies. On data, we want to facilitate the access of data, but also the possibility to reuse data, to share information and so on, to have better access to academic information also for you, but also for competent authorities. And we want also for methodologies to increase coherency, to extend as far as possible the harmonized approach, and what we already did, and to ensure that this hazard assessment is mainly done under CLP. On the next slide is how we want to get there. So we want, as I said before, develop a better coordination approach, in particular to inform you as early as possible on possible regulatory action on substance. So this will be done via the pact, and we also aim to develop expert group with member states and others, in particular, and agencies to better coordinate the decision to act on chemicals and to identify what is the better tools to tackle a specific substance. We want to promote grouping, and we want to give the possibility for Commission to initiate harmonized classification in CLP. In terms of allocation, we are working on a proposal to reallocate responsibility to agency, and we expect to do that by Q2 2023. Let's see if we are able to do that. We are also working on the ECHA Basic Act to strengthen its governance and also its financement. This is most probably to be done this year. Need to be discussed if it's Q2 or Q4. We are discussing that. On the transparency, we are working on the open platform to have access to more information on chemicals, in particular for academic information, but also to increase the use of harmonized format. So Euclid, for example, for hazard and use data, and IPChem for monitoring. We want to also have a centralized EU repository for health-based limit value. So in other terms, PNEC, DINEL. We want to, so this is will be progressively done, and we want to promote the reuse of PNEC and DINEL. We did not propose in CLP to go for harmonized PNEC or DINEL because it was obvious that you were not in favor, member states were doubting, and it looked like very bit too complex. So we did not include that in CLP, but we will see what we can do in the one substance, one assessment on that specific aspect. Yeah, and we have this OECD project for academic information. In terms of, yeah, we are a proposal on how data need to be handled and reported. This will be done by 2023. So we have a lot of work in our unit. On top of REACH and CLP, we have to develop 3 legislative proposals. So this is the first one. We have 2 other that it's, I think, on the next slide. No, it's on the reallocation that we have also to develop a proposal. And perhaps the next slide there is another one.
No, that's it.
So we have the ECA Basic Act. We have this reallocation of work among agencies, and we have this act on data. Something that could be quite interesting for you to be aware of. It's about the possibility for authorities, including Commission or ECA, to commission testing and monitoring of substances. Something that originally we wanted to include in REACH, but as an alternative to substance evaluation or as a complement to substance evaluation. But at the end, we say, okay, we won't be able to include that in REACH. So the idea is now to engage a discussion in the one substance, one assessment on that specific aspect. Now I'm done, I think.
Yes, that's it. So unless you have another slide package.
No, but yeah.
No, perfect timing.
Thank you. That was very good, and gives us all food for thought, I think, about what's coming our way in industry. Questions?
Questions from the room. Let's start with this ones. Yeah, please, say your name also and who you represent for the ones on the online that they don't see you.
Right. So my name is Christian Vetter from LyondellBasell. I have a question about the transitional times that you mentioned for CLP. You mentioned 24 months for substances and 42 for mixtures. But I've also seen other times in the proposal. 24 and 36, and then for 24 for substances, 36 for mixtures. For new substances mixtures, and for existing ones, then 42 and 60 months.
It's true.
So I was a little bit confused. What is?
Yeah, but what is
real proposal in reality?
It's what in the proposal. So we have a different timing.
Yeah.
In particular for existing mixtures already placed on the market, for which we give more time.
Right. So for an existing substance already on the market, it's 42.
For what I mean, for the product as such placed on the market, so the recipient.
Right. If it's already out in the market, but if the substance has already been produced, if you produce it for many years already,
first deadline.
And you make a new batch, then it will be 24 months.
Yeah.
Right.
The idea, if I remember well, the idea is to prevent discarding a lot of stocks, which are already, because otherwise you create waste. I think that's
okay.
So exhaust the stocks, but any new placing on the market requires the new labels.
Yeah, even if the substance has been produced already for many years. Okay, that's clear, I think. Yeah.
And I guess that timing will start once the work done on the methods and the what's required for, say, the endocrine disruption. You said that obviously you're working on the test or what you need to define whether it's an endocrine disruption or very persistent or very mobile, particularly in the mobility, which is new. So I guess that timing won't start until you say, right, this is the sort of testing that you need to do. Is that correct?
Not. No, the starting date is the entry into force of the Delegated Act. So April.
Okay.
This year. Then you have 24 months, 36, 42 months after that April date.
Okay.
It's why we will speed up the guidance development, in particular for some you already know. For PBT, there's nothing new.
Yeah.
You know what to do. For endocrine disruptor category 1, you know how to do it because it's already I mean, you know, it's similar to what has been done so far for some substance, in particular for pesticides, but also for SVHC. So there's nothing new. For category 2 and for mobility, it's totally new.
Yes.
And therefore, we want to focus in particular on that aspect to ensure that very soon you will have access to that information, allowing you, based on the information that you have, and most probably you don't have a lot of information today on endocrine disruptors because there is no real obligation to perform tests in the REACH for endocrine disruptors. So perhaps you have very few information. But when REACH will be implemented, and then you will be asked to develop testing for endocrine disruptors several years, and tests will be done, and then you will use that information to reassess if, based on this information that you develop, you will have to classify your substance or mixtures. So I don't know exactly how many information you have on endocrine disruptor currently for industrial chemicals or for substance under REACH, but we expect that it's not so much. For KOC is different, but
Thank you.
I think Cass said about two years for developing the guidance. So I guess it more or less, at best, we have the guidance in time to reclassify. It's going to be tight.
Yeah.
But we may have to do the work 3 times, if I understand well, right? The first time after 24 months, because the new hazard classes enter into force. Then maybe then we will have the new data requirement under REACH, which hopefully don't have to be generated in the next 2 years, because otherwise it's totally impossible. So I think you will need to time your information requirements very carefully. But if there are new data, again, redo. And then if there are changes at the UNGHS level, in a few years, whenever that comes, it comes back under CLP, because I understand the EU would commit to implement the UNGHS changes in the future, so we can redo it again.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
And the first one, I said, I don't know how many information you have on endocrine disruptors. Perhaps you have a lot or not, to be seen.
Depends on the substances.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it's why we want to be fast. Also, for the first, allowing you to perform the first assessment based on this guidance, and we know it's very tight.
I think what you really need to time carefully is the information requirements, because there's a lot of changes, including the NAMs. And I don't know, are you thinking of merging annexes 7 and 8? Because no?
No.
Okay.
No.
But there's also bioaccumulation, I saw, there's endocrine disruptors, and all these data actually are important for the new hazard classes and the CLP. So you will really need to think carefully about not having to redo the work too many times. I mean, that would be useless.
It's why in particular, when I speak about BCF, I say that be aware that it's what we want to achieve. Use NAM for BCF. So when perhaps some of you will be involved in the discussion on the CLP guidance and the PBT expert group, we have to keep in mind that it's not with the current REACH, so having animal testing. It's to reflect about how we will be able to classify based on the NAM. To avoid that, as you say, to redo an update of the guidance in 1 year. So it's what we ask again very clearly. You need to think now on NAM and not with a triggering system saying, okay, I start with NAM and this is not could be bioaccumulable, so we'll do animal testing. No. We understand that everyone wants to stop, to limit as much as possible animal testing when it's possible. And we believe that for BCF it's possible. For endocrine disruptors, probably not yet. For toxicity for production, probably not yet. For mutagenicity, carcinogenicity, I don't know. But we are moving in that direction. So it's why everyone has to change his mind. So obviously, when we use NAM, potentially we will increase uncertainties, but in both ways, both for positive, but also for negative conclusion. But this, it's not only you, but also member states that need to change their approach, saying, okay, the NAM saying that the substance is not bioaccumulable. I will accept that. Don't do a test. And you also have to accept that a NAM say that the substance is bioaccumulable and therefore
as long as you're in the applicability domain of the NAM. Good, and that we're working on it. We'll send the paper to.
And it's why I think the grouping make total sense and read across, because only based on the value of a NAM, a BCF, personally I will doubt. But if on top of that value on the substance, you can explain that this value is correct because I have BCF test on a very similar substance or a group of substances that is very, very similar to that substance you've tested on the NAM, then you have a robust approach. And on top of that, if we have information on toxicokinetic and so on, we can help also to have a more robust read across grouping that ECHA will be more ready to accept when you will propose that read across in your registration dossier, because today ECHA is very strict on read across and they cannot accept a lot of them. So it's why we say, okay, let's ask more, particularly toxicokinetic, that make the dossier more robust and more acceptable by ECHA. So this is the idea about, it's why we would like to speed up the NAM and do it via comitology, not wait for the co-decision, because then it will be in, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, I really don't know. In comitology, it can be faster, and we believe that we won't all go to not limited animal testing as far as possible.
Okay.
Any more questions from the room? Online, Thomas, yeah?
Yes, there is one question from Ilaria Finazzi from Celerant. Is it expected that the open data platform will allow automatic data extraction?
This is really, currently I'm focusing on rich and CLP. So I did my best to present one assessment and SSDB. So it's a very detailed question that perhaps you can send me an email. I will transfer to my colleague, Peter, that can reply. We can do like that. Sorry, I cannot, it's too detailed for me to answer. And if I'm saying something, perhaps it will be wrong. So better to answer by writing. So if it's possible.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I think for the previous stakeholder days, we always had the Q&A list also for Q&As that came in. We were not able to answer on spot or when there were too many, and then we publish it as an extra document afterwards. So
Okay.
Also again, for the ones online, don't hesitate to type anything or raise your hand. There's also the panel in a couple of minutes where we can further discuss. Then there's nothing more we can. Oh, Sylvie.
If I may, because it's
Yes,
not,
please.
it's too detailed for the panel, but you mentioned commissioning testing by authorities in the context of one substance, one assessment, and you also referred to 3 legal acts, I think. Data, removing the barrier to the data, ECHA founding regulation, and the omnibus, I think, reallocation of tasks. Now, you said commissioning testing is under discussion. Would it be included in one of these acts, or how? You said you had initial thoughts about, replacing substance evaluation. Our position is that there is substance evaluation, so there's already the possibility for the member states to request testing. There's already the testing proposal approach to agree on the test design. So what's the thinking on that?
I'm pretty sure that there's 4. Because I'm pretty sure that we have to do 3, and GROW is doing the ECHA Basic Act. But on the slide, I didn't identify which one is the third one.
Okay, so it could be, it could come as well.
For sure, there's this allocation of tasks, there is the data things and something else, but
Okay.
yeah, sorry, I very briefly with Peter before coming to ensure that I will be able to explain as far as I can. And on this possibility for authorities to commission testing, it's subject to an ongoing, I think, study also there, but also for some other aspect. And now, if it will be implemented via a legal obligation or in a legal act, this is too early to say.
Okay.
But it's certainly an option. The idea is to, for example, in the REACH currently, it's difficult to ask a substance, a specific test on a constituent, for example. It's always going to the substance, not a constituent in a substance. It's quite complex to obtain that. So this kind of possibility could be given to authorities. Say, okay, I want to test that constituent because I cannot ask in the reach, so I will do it myself. And the same for other aspect, that there are some specific cases that an authority want to clarify and they cannot do it via substance evaluation or in other means. And all of this is coming from the glyphosate discussion, and also some petition and parliament and so on about lack of transparency. The public saying that, yeah, for glyphosate is not classified as carcinogen because it's based on tests done by industry. And it started there, that idea about giving the possibility for competent authority to test. So perhaps it will not be used for industrial chemicals and perhaps it will be used mainly for pesticides. EFSA already have that possibility, and they have a lot of resource to perform tests. It's not so much used today, but EFSA has already that possibility.
Okay, then I think we are at the end of the first part. The next part, is just to allow us, for those of you, especially online, I think in the room, everybody knows ESIG, just to give a brief presentation what ESIG is and show how we have been approached chemical legislation in the past a little bit. And then we move on to the panel. Rob, you want to give it a start?
Yeah, thank you. And again, thank you for your presentation. We'll be able to share that. I think, good. That's good. And as I said, the people online, if you've got questions, I've seen some come through. So Thomas is getting those, and we'll get answers to those, as Cornelia said. So thank you. So this is just quickly 10-15 minutes on ESIG and what we do. As I say, I'm your chair at the moment. So ESIG is a joint venture between the Oxygenated Solvents and the Hydrocarbon Solvents Producers Association. We're part of Petrochemicals Europe and of CEFIC, of course. So, as I say, I'm the chair of ESIG, and also Alan is the chair of SFOC, which is at the bottom of that slide. So that's where all the downstream users and their associations come and feed into us as the producers. So that's the format that we have. So we all know that solvents are very important and essential to lots of our uses. I heard of a new one today of very thin wires, almost thinner than the human hair, that uses solvents to give the insulation coating on those that go into electronics. So as I say, solvents just everywhere in the products that we use and are used to produce them. And you can find more on the ESIG website there. Cornelia? So very important. I believe it's a very important industry. I think we all do around here. You can see the figures there. It's kept me busy for over 30 years in my career, and you can see why. There's over 500,000 European companies using solvents, a lot of them SMEs. These are the producers that are members of ESIG. We have 9 members in HOSPA and 20 in the oxygenated solvents. As you can see, my company, the Shell Pectin there, but we've got all the big producers there as our members, and I'm very grateful for the support they give me and the industry. Thank you. So this is what we aim to do in ESIG, promote the safe and sustainable use of solvents. That's how we try to do it. And this Stakeholder Day is all about, enhancing our knowledge and promoting that safe and sustainable use and making sure that we're up with the legislation. On the safety side, we do lots of work. We have this Solvents at Work programme that my colleague there, Christian Fetter, works on, the product stewardship team. And, we produce lots of information to make sure that our solvents are used safely. So, for example, the best practice guide, we have best practice guides. We have posters, do's and don'ts posters, the use of gloves to promote the safe use of solvents in our downstream users. Films, we produce training films, again, based on the safe and sustainable use. You can see the topics there. I'm very pleased that we work very closely with the SIA, the Solvent Industry Association of the UK. I believe Andrew Norman, their General Secretary, is on the line, and we work very closely together. And this is one example where we produce the films together. Thank you.
Yeah, so it was more the practical side. There we also work on concepts since a long time. So maybe most of you are familiar with the generic exposure scenarios under REACH, which are today the industry standard for, let's say, broad applications. The concept has been developed by ESIG and then also used by other consortia and so on. We also continue to improve that, and our latest developments are that we have also use maps, and we are currently developing sweat codes for all our exposure and scenarios. A MAF of 5 will be challenging because we have to check everything again. But yeah, let's see. Also interesting, we also go beyond the modeling exercise. We have a human exposure database for everything that is published on solvent exposure on industrial and professional sites. It has been there since 22 years already. So you find also quality assessment of this data. So everybody who looks for that can access that and search. And currently we have started a project with the Lower Aromatics REACH Consortium to invest in a robot study that mimics consumer exposure. So it's a robot that's developed at university in Texas. And then that mimics like a consumer would paint. And then we have different, we have currently, I think, finalized the substance selection or the mixture selection with safety data sheets provided from several associations. And then I think it will start in March, the latest, the experimental part. Yeah, and then just from our member associations in OSPA, just to mention, we have what's called the OSPA Charter for Glycol Ethers. It's already in place since 1996, so 25 years. It's a voluntary agreement that once glycol ether is classed reprotoxic, this charter kicks in, meaning that the suppliers will only sell it when to buyers or downstream users, including distributors, when they confirm annually that there is use only in industrial application and closed systems, that all the OSH legislation is implemented, OELs are respected, and obviously it is not sold to the public. So even before REACH restrictions, consumer applications of reprotoxic glycol ethers were trying to be excluded. And not only OSPA, also from the hydrocarbon side, just another example is what we call the RCP calculator, reciprocal calculation procedure. I don't know who invented this, but maybe the name. Again, it's nothing new. Prior to REACH, since 2005, a method to calculate OELs for hydrocarbon solvents, knowing that most of them are UVCBs, so it's challenging to have it. And there's a whole theory or calculation system about it with group guidance values on known OELs that are then calculated. So you can, using this tool, calculate the OEL for your hydrocarbon solvent. And I think that was just to give an example that, I mean, we are not only following legislation, but trying to really preempt it and also, of course, implement what needs to be implemented.
Thank you, Cornelia. So now we've done that, we'll hand over to Sylvie, who is going to moderate the panel discussion. We know Sylvie very well in the solvents area. I believe she was part of ESIG when she was with Exxon. Is that correct? So goes back many years with solvents. So welcome. No, I'm sorry, not many years. No, only 1 or 2 years.
Thank you.
So she now is the executive director of product stewardship, and she's going to moderate our panel now. So thank you, Sylvie. Over to you.
Yeah, thanks for the introduction. Maybe a very, very small comments to bridge between Cornelia's presentation and Sylvain's presentation, because the robot study to mimic consumer exposure made me think that for the professional uses under GRA, the Commission is talking about a similar exposure as consumers. So it may be an interesting way to understand where a professional may exposure, maybe like a consumer exposure, but. Anyway, it may not be available on time. So we move to the panel discussion. I hate to be sitting for the panel for moderating, but okay, that's the setup of the room. I hope people online can follow as well. So we have you stay for the panel as well, Sylvain?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
and then we have 4 people. We lost one. But we have 4 people, and what is really nice.
One is online, but maybe he can. I don't know if
Is
he
Brent?
switch.
Yes.
Carl is online.
He's online.
But
Okay.
maybe if you switch on your camera, I don't know if you can.
Yeah, that would be
see him.
nice.
Carl show. Yeah,
There he
is. Good. Hi, Carl.
Hi, Carl. Yeah. So what I like about the panel is that it really goes from the producers of solvents with Lambiot to the distributors with Brenntag. They are chemical distributors, so they deliver the products. And we have users as well, professional industrial users in very different sectors. So we get a feeling of what are the different concerns of the different actors in the value chain. So I think as a matter of introduction, I'm going to ask each of you to introduce yourself briefly, company name, characteristics, number of employees, where you're located, what are your main uses of solvents, and maybe very shortly, what's your main concern about the chemical strategy or what we heard this morning in terms of regulatory changes. So should I follow the order of the value chain? So maybe start with Céline.
Okay, so I'm Céline Guissard. I'm working as an R&D manager for Lambiot. We are a small company, just under 50 employees. And as Sylvie said, we are chemical manufacturers. We're manufacturing acetals. They are mainly used as solvents and in all kind of applications, including paints, inks, cleaning, removers, adhesive sealants, and so on. If we are focusing on our challenges for the chemical strategy for sustainability, I would say it's mainly 2 things. It's how can we plan ahead for this, and how can we allow resources nicely, not to waste time and not to do things multiple times. If I take our setup, we are only 2 people working for REACH and CLP and so on with just a little help. And as new regulations are coming, we are facing products that might be regulated, but we don't know. And losing markets because of regulation when you have an age product portfolio, it's a big deal. So what we want is really to be prepared and to plan ahead, and also to be able to provide our downstream users with alternatives for formulation. And this currently is very difficult to do because we have substances in the pipelines in R&D, but we don't know what to do with them, because if we launch them on the market and then in 6 months they get regulated, it's bad for everybody. It's bad for us and it's bad for clients. So yes, we're waiting, and because we don't know where we're going.
Thank you, Céline. Should we move to Brenntag introduction, please? Carl, can you hear me?
Yeah, no problem at all. Good morning, everyone. My name's Carl Schoen, so obviously I work for Brenntag. I'm the technical development manager, so I work across the EMEA region directly, but also I advise our North American, Latin American, and Asia Pacific territories as well. I've been working specifically in solvents now for just over 20 years, so I've dealt an awful lot in different applications for many companies. We're basically we're the global market leader in chemicals and ingredient distribution. We have about 700 locations within about 78 countries worldwide. That employs over about 17,200 people. We do have a full line portfolio of more than 10,000 individual products. Solvents in particular are a very important line within that. When we actually put products pretty much into every single market area. So we cover a myriad of different applications in areas such as agrochemical, coatings, construction, HI&I, print press, pharma, and functional type areas as well. If we look in terms of just general terms, I suppose you could say that the main challenges we see at the moment are probably twofold. At times for us, particularly within distribution, it can be difficult to know the full specific detail behind how customers are actually using products. We can generally only get so much information out of them. Where we do have more specific information on what they're doing, then we can try and advise them in terms of what potential areas can be coming at them in the future, but we can't always do that. But I think it's just to really go on to something that Celine's just said there as well. Translating the actual changes into something meaningful for customers is quite a big thing for us, particularly when you look at SMEs. They don't have huge amounts of people who are able to sit there within HSE departments and really guide them through what can actually be a real minefield for them. So being able to get finite level of information to allow us to try and translate that into a simple format and then start disseminating that through our customer base is pretty crucial.
Okay. Thank you, Carl. So we move to the users of the products. Maybe we start, should I say Albertus, or you have, yeah, okay. Albertus?
I'm Albertus Koster. I work with Chugoku Marine Paints in the Netherlands. We have about 100 people working in the Netherlands. Worldwide, we're a bit larger. We supply marine paints all over the world. Our use of solvents is actually essential. Many paints can be made waterborne, but those can be are of limited use in the outdoor environment because at temperatures below 10 degrees, they don't do much film forming anymore. So for that purpose, we are absolutely depending on solvents. Our big worries in the field of regulatory are the timing. There's a lot of time going between the conception of a new product in the chemical world and the actual market that we supply the products to. Our estimate, it's somewhere between, depending on the product, between 15 to 25 years that go by between those areas. And the second thing that we're fighting against is differences in regulation all over the world, in Europe, and even in the Netherlands, where some things are regulated differently upon their use, and that is for a worldwide company a disaster to make different labels for the Netherlands, for Germany, and even for US and Japan. It's a horrible situation, and it's for our warehousing an actual impossible situation. So that's the two worries that we have.
Thank you very much, Albertus. Joseph.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Joseph Kummer from Electrisola. We are a producer of winding wires, very small winding wires, as Rob already mentioned. Our company is located in basically in Germany, close to Cologne, but we have some factories all over the world. Actually, we are more or less an exemption in the market. We are quite a big company with about 3,000 people working worldwide. But basically, making winding wire is a very small niche market, and most of the companies working there are SMEs. Our use of solvents is mainly in the insulation. The insulation is applied as a liquid film on the copper wire. And our main challenges, first of all, is just to keep track of all what's going on. We don't have a big dedicated department dedicated to all these tasks. I'm plant manager for the German plant, and it's also my duty to keep track of this, and this is quite time consuming. And the second main challenge is some of the substances that are in our solvents are harmful, but we rely on our suppliers. We don't have any R&D capacities at all to develop new varnishes. So we have to rely on those. And since the market is quite small, it might be a challenge to be able to get all these varnishes we need in the future.
Thank you. So I think what we are hearing very much is I think the commonality is how do I plan and when. I think I'm hearing a complexity of legislation and divergence even within the EU, but also globally, obviously. And we're of course in a global market, and I'm also hearing navigating the uncertainty, but also planning the resources. So, and maybe question to Sylvain now, any advice you can give to those companies who actually, they have R&D, ongoing, or they would like to have maybe more R&D, but there's really a willingness to stay competitive, to stay here, to be compliant on time. So what would be your advice in terms of how they can plan properly, how they can navigate the current situation of uncertainty because legislation is changing?
Yeah, there are some existing tools that are already available that can increase the predictability of what will happen to your substance. And as I said, in one substance one assessment, we want to increase that predictability. And so far, the tools is limited to REACH and CLP. They want to also to extend to other legislation. But already looking at the ECHA website can help a lot about to know what will happen to some of the substances. So there are some good database done by ECHA. Also the EU CLEF, it's a good one that explain what are currently the legislation on a specific substance. So this can be used as well. So existing tools can be used, but it's not enough, obviously. And it's why we want to increase that. It will take perhaps a few years, but you saw when it's 2023 what we are proposing. So we hope to speed up that. To also ECHA is ready to work more on that. Also, if we are able to, from our side, to create a system that will help or will ensure that we'll take the most relevant decisions on substance, and perhaps to focus more on the substance for which we really need to act, for which there is obvious exposure, that there is a problem for consumer, for personal user, for industrial user. This can help, but the problem that we are faced with, and also member states, it's lack of information sometimes. So member states are they like, for example, that we go for authorization, because they say, okay, I do my job, I identify a substance as very high concern, it's a carcinogen, and I want that substance to be subject to authorization. This is the job of a member state. It's very easy. They don't want to go for restriction because it's a lot of work, and they need to look at what is the use of the substance. They have to perform a risk assessment. It's few member states can do that. Germany, France, Nordic country. So member states are really looking for an easy approach as well. So if we are able to obtain more information, most probably both member states, but also us, will be able to identify the most relevant approach and perhaps limit some of the problems that you are faced with. Another approach that perhaps it's have some inconvenience but also advantage is the grouping. So there, you know that when you start to use a specific substance, and you see more and more that very similar substance will be affected by requests from member state to act on more testing and so on, most probably it's an alert that if you are using a very similar substance, that one day, most probably that substance will be seen also as a problematic one. So this is also an alert for you to be aware of. I'm not saying that it's because a substance similar to another one that automatically will be classified, no? But I'm saying that it's how we are moving to some extent, but we need robust scientific information to do so. But it's a trend, the grouping. So this can help also you to be aware about the future situation. I don't know if it helps.
Yeah. Yes, well, grouping is could in some cases it can be controversial. I think you're right. It has pros and cons, definitely. Anyone wants to react to what you heard from the Commission so far, and then
Maybe I'll give a small comment. Is when you're working on a substance that's never been marketed before, for which no information is available, you want to be innovative, want to propose a solution to your client, so it's a good option. So you do a lot of testing beforehand, thinking, I don't want to launch this into the market and then see it fall after just taking a few steps. And I'll take the case of reprotoxicity testing. You make a study, you get results, and you see your results, and you're like, what do I do with this? There's no threshold. Is this going to be classified? Is this not going to be classified? I don't know. So problem is not lacking data. We are willing to test. We are willing to have data, but sometimes we have data and we don't know what to do with them. So this makes developing new alternatives very difficult. Also on the topic of grouping, and especially for reprotoxicity, sometimes just a methyl group on a molecule makes all the difference.
Yeah.
So this is highly stressful for us on developing alternatives to products.
Thanks. I think as part of Safe and Sustainable by Design, one of the recommendations was to develop better predictive toxicology tools, so beyond the existing QSARs, really to try at the R&D stage to already get some alerts. Because if you have a red flag at the R&D stage, then you stop, or you may even, you don't lose time on a molecule, you move to the next, or now I don't know. Yes, it would be interesting to data mine the ECHA database to see, if there are some improvements could be made, and maybe there are new tools that should be developed to help SMEs do this kind of predictive toxicology to be seen in the future. But I think you're right, and grouping is also another issue. You're absolutely right, where we need to better understand how ECHA is also proceeding. Just turning to Carl to make sure we all stay as one panel. Any reaction so far, Carl?
Yeah, I mean, part of the, I would say, if we look at the market as a whole, part of the issue as we start moving more towards the future is if we're going to try and move directly from where we are now on the crude grade slate and start moving more towards more sustainable materials. So again, looking more at the more sustainable by design. A lot of those materials that are going to be required for the future, we still don't actually know what a lot of those formats are going to be. So we're starting to see more materials which are coming from. Traditionally, we've had materials which have been based on either something like coconut, which have been put into the market, and that's actually dealt with a lot of issues. By using those type of materials, we've been able to reduce the level of toxicity of products which are going out to market. A lot of the new materials which are now coming out from the future, they're looking at materials such as LGO, so the levoglucosidone, or levulinic acid, and other materials such as those. So again, we still to this day really don't know the level of products we're actually going to be able to get from these type of sectors, because they're all just emerging now. What a lot of the customers are now going to face, particularly where they're sticking products out into some specialized markets, they may need to put the registrations in place. And those registrations themselves, it's not just a case of the R&D design of the product themselves, but then the actual registration processes can take another 2-3 years on top of that as well. So at the moment, we're trying to give people something that is future-proof, but we still don't know entirely what the potential grade slate is going to be for them. And then again, if we're not entirely sure in terms of what potential changes on labeling that can actually come from what we've got at the moment as well, that does make for a very bumpy road going forward.
Thank you very much. I'd like to look a little bit more concretely. So, build on the slides you presented this morning, Sylvain, in particular on the changes to REACH with the reform, with the generic risk management approach, with the changes to registration, authorization. We are hearing potentially more scope for some early derogations because we have these a pile of authorization that is becoming unmanageable. So looking to the both cases, so here we have two companies using solvent for very good reasons. One I would argue is probably more professional for marine paints, well, at least it's not in an industrial setting. electric wires or winding wires are definitely in an industrial setting. You both rely on relatively hazardous solvents to deliver the performance, everything being relative, of course. But if you look at what Sylvain presented and the different regulatory options, how would these companies have to manage a future? Let's say their substance, their key substance, becomes a CMR category 1 or a PBT. How can they prepare for that? What would happen under the future REACH in terms of either industrial or professional use? How would the different regulatory management tools work together, and how can they prepare for that? I don't know, it may be too early to say, but I'm really trying to concretely, build on these scenarios.
Just before, I wanted to say that indeed the beauty and the problem of the NAM is that you need a lot of expertise to use them. As you say, even when you have a test, you don't know how to use the information. But with the new assessment methodology, I mean, you need a lot of expertise because it's not only the result of one test, it's also how to do grouping, how to take into account toxicokinetic and so on. So it looks like a good option, but it's difficult to implement, in particular for SMEs. So this is the problem of alternative method to some extent, because it's not a single information, it's probably a weight of evidence when using NAM. So I understand your concern about that. So I don't know how you can find help if some expertise could be developed at industry level or whatever. But yeah, I see that could be an issue. On your question, Sylvie, I don't know enough the specificity. I was working some years ago on paint and anti-fouling paint and with TBT. So unfortunately, I have this in mind that for me, marine paint can induce exposure. If you are saying no, there is no exposure because there is a coating and therefore there is no release in the marine environment.
For solvents, you can't prevent exposure of people applying it.
So it's more at the application stage. It's not like TBT that was also emitted to the environment.
That is not for the solvent. For other substances, yes, because we still use active substances. But for solvents, it's not in the paint. When the ship is in the water, there's no solvent left.
Okay. So I assume that it's therefore more professional. It's not for and therefore there's no emission to the environment. So if a substance is becoming carcinogen, I think in your case, I have the feeling that your people working on using that substance are more look like industrial workers. So they use equipment, they are well protected, they are trained and so on. So there we are more or less moving to the OSH obligation, and it's one of the issues that we are discussing. It's how to do in addition, what needs to be done in addition to OSH and the REACH. And you saw some example that we did a diisocyanate restriction on the request of the member states because they notified that there is the level of harmonization on the OSH implementation between member states are very bad, and some workers were very well trained when you use this diisocyanate, but others not at all. So they say we need to harmonize, and it cannot be done via OSH, so let's do it via REACH. So I assume that in your case, if we are in the same situation, most probably REACH can still be used to ensure harmonization of the protection of workers using your solvent.
For workers, you're right, but workers are generally well protected. But I'm afraid that for the use of anti-fouling paints, we also have a great number of amateur users who paint their own yachts in the wintertime. And I think those are less well protected than the professional users. And we still have to, on a yacht, the use of anti-fouling paint is as important to prevent a lot of issues with CO2 emissions, with non-indigenous species spreading around Europe and the world. So that is something that is important. And even there, the limit, there are no possibilities of moving towards the water-based paints.
Mhm.
But I think you mentioned something important, that a restriction on the reach is not necessarily systematically a product ban. It can be also imposing a number of protective measures or yeah.
Yet the legislators seem to think that people applying anti-fouling paint as a do-it-yourself applicator do so practically in the nude. An amateur is not supposed to use any protective measures. So we are.
Yeah, but then if we have these uses as well, I assume that the future of this will be part of the type of uses that will cover by the generic risk management approach, that this amateur won't be able to use that to do it, and it will be done by a professional.
Then you make a lot of people unhappy.
Yeah, but also, like, I mean, when you are dealing with a lead-in shot, we are making
you are hurting a big industry in Europe.
But it's what has been done with anti-fouling. I mean, try to move to professional uses to avoid that people are doing themselves with no protection. So I assume I'm asking me to try to predict what will be the outcome.
I just want to use it. We all know it's hypothetical. I just want people to realize, and maybe you have suggestions for how actually to manage the amateurs in a different way.
Well,
But
currently we're still managing.
Okay.
But in the future, and that's the uncertainties that are coming. A lot of our products are based on xylene, and xylene is currently a CMR2. And I'm not sure whether it will stay a CMR2. And that is looking into the future. That is so uncertain that we have to manage those kind of things.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure that this amateur, for me, it's obviously consumer, and therefore they will be part of GRA, and therefore they will not have access to that paint anymore, except if you want to do it unofficially or whatever. But they will not, normally they should not have access to that paint, and they will stop doing themselves, and they have to go via a professional. Like it happened in biocide, for example.
But if it's category 2,
no, I'm speaking about CMR category 1.
That's fine. Yeah, that was the scenario. Yes.
We don't want to underreach, but underreach is category 1 clearly for generic risk management approach.
And then if we turn to an industrial use in an industrial setting, with the case of Joseph, where GRA in principle should not apply, at least in the way the current thinking goes. So there are other options, either under occupational health and safety legislation or under REACH, with potentially some authorization. Is that the right understanding, that there could still be both options? Would one prevail over time, or
what we are seeing for industrial uses is also to look more in detail about other legislation than REACH. There we have OSH again, but also we have this industrial emission directive that can be part of the equation, and also it's linked to what could be the problem. Is it again something linked more to the environment, or is it more for worker protection? So, and it's what we would like to implement, to have a discussion not only between rich people, but also including colleagues from other regulatory framework, like Industrial Emission Directive, OSH, to see if we need to do something in addition to that. And it's really what we want to achieve. We did mistake, obviously, for some chemicals that we selected the wrong tool, and we want to limit that kind of mistake. So in your case, again, it's not so easy because I don't know enough the possibility for. I have the feeling that we are more in a closed system, but perhaps not. But if you are in a closed system, most probably it will not be prioritized for action under REACH because no exposure. But and then we are also thinking about the end of life and therefore the recycling step. And if there is some exposure, then it's something that we have to take into account again to decide if we need to act under REACH or not, because we also want to look at this stage as well. Not the waste treatment, but also possibility that substance is backed to the product we are recycling.
So for our case, the product itself, the winding wire, is not the problem because it's perfectly free of harmful substances.
Yeah.
It's the manufacturing process. So end of life, I think, is not the main issue for us. We're dealing both with the IED directive because we're talking about emissions in the production process and occupational safety, and we do all the homework that we think that's necessary. First of all, we try to minimize the use of these substances, of course. Then we work on the application technology, on the production technology to encapsulate as much as possible, as you mentioned, closed systems. But still, if there's some occupational exposure left, we train the people, we provide all the necessary protective equipment, and in the end, we enforce the use of it. That's what we can do at the moment. And the only thing I can ask for is, if you're talking about restriction, that at least one of the substances we use is restricted or is going to be restricted now. The only thing I can ask for is all the discussions and evaluations going on be realistic and establish DNLs and thresholds that are reachable for the industry.
On the threshold, and it's back to one of your remarks about reproductive toxicity, we are also trying to implement what we call a DML. So it's like a DNL, but it's for non-threshold chemicals. And this could be part of a new obligation that can help to define a threshold that you can use to elaborate your chemical safety report, and therefore to decide if there is a need to implement new or additional risk management measures. So this can help in terms of threshold. And what we are trying to do, we work a lot about between OSH and REACH, even if it was not a big success. But we are really trying to improve that coordination or complementary action under OSH and REACH. We are also trying to do the same for Industrial Emission Directive and REACH, how both can help each other. How we in the REACH, or even you in your institution, can use what is done in the Industrial Emission Directive and so on. And we are trying to involve ECAR there with the more collaboration with GRC Center in Spain. So we are trying to, and it's also one of these one super assessment, take on board not only CLP, but REACH, OSH, Industrial Emission Directive, and so on, everything, but also food legislation together to work in synergy, the action, and to decide what is the most relevant action, if any, that need to be taken at EU level.
Okay, thanks. You were talking a lot about uses and having enough information on uses, and I think, Carl, you also mentioned that it's difficult to have all the information on uses. I don't know if the requirement will change in the REACH regulation, but I think it would be good to hear a bit from the different companies on all these safe use communication, either from the registrant, what are you missing, or vice versa from the users of the product. What is the issue with communicating in the value chain? Because at the end, REACH is very much, the registration at least is very much based on the risk assessment of every use, and to do an exposure scenario and a good calculation, including with the future application of a MAF that will increase the pressure to redo the chemical safety reports. Having good information on uses and exposure is crucial, and will be even more crucial in the future. So any thoughts on, what are the practical issues you're facing today, and maybe potential solutions? Because REACH is reopened, so maybe the opportunity to think of solutions.
Maybe I can start, because since we are lead registrants for almost all our products, we are responsible for making the exposure assessment for them.
Yeah.
So when you need to prepare your CSR, you need to have information on the uses and quantities, and we end up with things like, okay, this product, there's 12 tons in coatings. deal with it. So this is really a big challenge, because you have your DNLs, you have your PNEX, and you have 12 tons coatings. Then you do whatever you can do in terms of risk management measures and concentrations and time to make it fit, but you have no idea if this actually fits the downstream user way of working. So
is it because you don't have direct access to the downstream users to interrogate them on how they use?
The way we are currently doing it, we are working with a distributor. So we are working with Brenntag also. So we ask Brenntag to ask the downstream users to get the info back to us so we can make the exposure assessment and CSR. And well, it's going this way and then back, and we end up with very little meaningful information. What we can do is, when a downstream user comes back to us and say, okay, you have this in your CSR, this doesn't cover what I do, we change it, there's no problem, but we don't have the information to make it, I'd say, properly.
So, Carl, you get this request from Celine. You're in the middle of the value chain. What are the difficulties you're facing in managing these requests, and is there anything that can be done to improve this communication so that Celine does not have later to need to reopen later the CSR and redo the work? Any based on experience, any suggestions on how to improve?
It's something we're actually working on a regular basis, because if you think of the sheer level of customers that we've got as well, when we're looking at different materials going out to those customers, if it's something which is involved where it's potentially a drug precursor or anything else, anything on that legal side, then we get signed declarations back, and then it says, okay, we are not using it for these type of uses, and we can get something definitive on that side. If you look in terms of something which is potentially an intermediate, we're told that it's actually being used as an intermediate, but unless we've actually got finite detail of every single part of their process, how can we actually prove that? And I think part of this is actually coming down to the level, I suppose you could actually also include it in areas such as enforcement as well, because what are we actually going to do on the enforcement side to ensure that we're getting genuine data coming back up the chain? Because I think that's really where we start to struggle a little bit. We put all of the systems in place to ensure that we actually do things right. We want to mitigate risk. We want to make sure that we're actually controlling substances properly. But if we actually look in terms of what's gone on in the past few years, everything has basically been along the lines of whistleblowing. There's been no real enforcement rulings in place or procedures in place. A lot of it's just been a case of, well, actually somebody's not using something in the right way. So from our perspective, we try and do what we can. We try and get an awful lot of information out to customers. We try and visit their premises. We actually do proper procedural walkabouts to ensure that before we deliver in, we're making sure that everything's right and it's actually being done in a safe and responsible manner as well. But for finite detail on individual applications, quite often we'll only be given so much information. And a lot of the information, a lot of the detail we'll be giving back is say, this is the general area we're using it in, but the rest of it is part of a confidential procedure. So I suppose the question then is, and I suppose that can come back into enforcement in a way, what can we then actually do collectively to put some more procedures in place to ensure that that information does actually come back up the field?
Mm-hmm. But shouldn't we demystify a bit the downstream user CSR? And basically, so, I'm the registrant. Either you give me the information and I have enough to do a proper risk assessment, or you take over if it's confidential, fine. Someone carries the responsibility to demonstrate the safety. I think, of course, whistleblowing is I can see for drug precursors, the system is tighter, and rightly so, of course. But shouldn't we do more? I know it's a burden on the downstream users, but you still have a choice of giving the information to the supplier.
From my point of view, I would say that most downstream users don't read CSRs. So, I mean, we're working with a lot of SMEs. I'm sorry to say this like this, but I believe at least 50% of our clients have never opened a CSR in their life. So they don't know what it's for. Okay.
You mean the extended, the exposure
Yes.
scenarios in the extended
Yes.
safety data sheet? Okay.
Yes.
So anything we can do to improve the understanding of with the information, the recommendations from the extended safety data sheet?
Limited.
Limited.
It's not a measure of information flow, but even we as a downstream user, almost at the end of the stream, we don't know everything that our customers do with our products. They probably apply the paint by either brush, roller or spray gun, but there are different ways to apply the paint, and people get sometimes very creative on how to do things. So that we not always know how they use our products, and we are depending on the end users for that information, and that is very difficult to obtain because many of those end users simply don't have the capabilities of reading all the regulations. So we can make estimates, and we are very happy to share everything we know because it's not something that is secretive. There are limitations to what we know about how our paints are used, and 99% will be quite okay. But there are people that are very creative.
Yeah, and as long as you have a safety margin, that's fine. I think that will reduce with the MAF in the future. Sorry.
Can I comment on that? Luc Turkenburg, representing SEPE, Paint Makers Association. I think that extended safety data sheets are indeed not read very accurately, especially not since users of mixtures would get a lot of those. And I think that a very strong tool is the training obligation that was, for instance, in the restriction of the use of diisocyanates, where you actually condense the information on behavior, on safety behavior, with complex materials from even more complex reports. Can be handled in a kind of education of the people on how to behave with these mixtures and how to use them safely. So I think that you can put a lot of attention in getting more people to read the extended safety data sheet. I think it will not help. What really helps is to summarize it for a generic group of applications and create training for that.
Good idea. And if there's a platform that exists already, maybe for diisocyanates, maybe it can even be reused for other substances, but definitely learning from the good cases is good.
Because it takes a lot of time to make those exposures assessment and CSR. And we have to cover a lot of applications that we don't know anything about since we are only manufacturing the solvent. So we're willing to do the work, and we want information to pass correctly down the value chain. Some tools would help.
Good. Before we move to another topic, is there any question from people online or in the room for the panel?
Thank you, Sylvie. I'm Paula Diaz. I represent the European Association of Adhesives and Sealants, but also the Downstream Users Coordination Group. And I still wanted to comment a bit on this idea of the exposure scenarios and the training. I think there are two tools that could probably help with this. There are many sectors of downstream users who developed use maps that can be used in the exposure scenarios that would reduce certainly the amount of information that the users would receive, and that would probably improve also the possibility of reading them. But I really like the idea that Luke was commenting on the training, and some of you are probably aware that Duke would like to engage on the training of the users, of the professional users for some substances. And we see with the diisocyanate training that, of course, there are many trainings out there, but we downstream users really have a link with the users to convey information. So maybe we can use that link to make them aware, look, there is a training. So it's not only about providing them with the information, but also about raising awareness. So I think that's an important role that we downstream users we can play, and we would like to do that.
It's online training, right? It's easy for the users who don't have a lot of time. It's all online. Okay, good.
They see it on the label of the product, so it's more direct.
There's no question on Teams. Okay, so we move on a bit of, I mean, one of the key drivers of the chemical strategy for sustainability is substitution of the, not only the most harmful, but basically move towards safer and more sustainable chemicals as well. And you're talking about, developing alternatives. You're talking about the need for alternatives. I mean, what are the key challenges you see in terms of alternatives development, or what would be your needs if there was really a willingness to move massively into substitution development? So let's increase our R&D by a factor of 10, right? With a view to produce, chemicals of tomorrow that are safe, that are sustainable, and that deliver the performance. But where would you start? What is it that you would need in order to embark into a massive substitution program, if that was possible?
You've just said it. The problem is the product needs to be bio-based, biodegradable. It needs to perform, not be toxic, neither CMR nor reprotoxic. It needs to act like benzene, but be toxic like water. There's a lot of parameters. And now we have more parameters with PBTs and endocrine disruptors and reprotoxicity. So I'd say it's looking for a needle in a haystack. There are probably some few molecules out there that can do the job for specific applications, or for specific applications, you can say, okay, it's okay if it's a bit toxic, but it's very nice, it's biodegradable and stuff. You need to make compromises, and it's a lot of work. And starting into this, the tools you have, everybody will tell you about QSAR and predicting tools and everything. Well, put a new molecule, put it in QSAR and see what comes out, and then do the testing. And well, there's still a long way to go. I'm not saying predicting tools are not good, but it goes only so far. Mm-hmm. And for us, generating data, as I said, we are willing to do it. We are doing testing for molecules. No clients have seen these molecules, and we have already data to register them to Annex 7. I mean, this is crazy, because the resources in terms of time and money for molecules that sometimes won't even see the market, that really is a lot. You're doing a 200,000 euro study for a product that you don't know if it's going out.
Yeah.
So the industry can provide resources. We are willing, but there's no way we can develop alternatives in 1 to 5 years. It's taking, even for solvents that are relatively simple molecules, some developments are 10, 15, 20 years. So don't expect us to make miracles. We are willing to, but we are doing our best.
Yeah, and then we add a couple of years to that, because we need to have our testing done. We have projects going on, BPR approval. Our dossiers we entered 5 years ago are still under evaluation. If you have the normal products, you have NORSOX, you have other things that are going on, which take a couple of years. The shelf life, product stability take a couple of years. So before you have a product, a lot of years have gone by. And what we actually need to ensure that new developments is the certainty that we can sell the product for a reasonable amount of time after they are ready, because otherwise we cannot make money on the developments. Developments, 200,000 euros. It takes a bit time to earn that money, and that's not the limit. 200,000. There is a lot more money involved, and we have somehow to earn that money. And otherwise to be in the market. So we have to have the certainty that we can sell our products for a reasonable amount of time after the development has finished. So we're talking really about many, many years from now that we have to be sure that we can sell the products. And that is really a handicap. That is very tough, because the developments in knowledge, in hazard understanding, they don't wait upon us. They move forward even more, and then we're shooting at moving targets. That is very difficult. Really, that is something that is impossible.
Any input, Joseph? Any additional?
Yeah, what I can add on this is the varnish that we use, or the insulation that is applied on the wire. It's not decorative. It has certain mechanical and electrical properties which are vital to the product itself and to its uses. And it's also we'd be talking about international standards, IST standards for winding wires. So if there is a new insulation or new varnish that does not contain those substances, we still have to deal with the specification of the final product, and this might take an additional step. If there should be slight adjustments to IEC standards, this has also been taken into account, and this is an international process going on, and also takes some time. Or we will not be able to sell that wire anymore.
Time and predictability. Carl, any additional input from a distributor perspective on how you are managing surfing on all these uncertainties and trying to reassure your own customers?
So if we look at distribution as a whole, blends is probably where we can really actually come into our own. But there's a couple of things which really come out of this. First and foremost, if we're actually looking where blends are actually being used, it's because there's usually been a restriction's been put in place on a prior material. So we've got to try and find a different way of doing the same type of job. That's first and foremost. If we actually look back probably about 15 years ago, particularly in the aerospace industry, there was restrictions put on a lot of the materials they were using at the time. For a lot of those manufacturers, they could no longer safely do it within the required safe health and safety regimes within Europe. As a result of that, those companies actually had to completely stop doing what they were doing. And what did end up doing is those manufacturing processes then ended up in India and other countries. If we're going to meet the actual the nitty-gritty and the finite detail of the Green Deal, we cannot let that happen in any way, shape or form. We need to maintain manufacturing within our local territories, so that way we can actually ensure that we're not immediately sticking extra CO2 emissions on top of that, and also that we're ensuring that we are doing the processes properly and we're controlling the materials properly as well. That's absolutely paramount moving forward. For us, again, when we start looking at blends, again, part of the issue we've got at the moment is we've got so many materials we can use. There's a lot more materials which are still coming through at the moment, but we really can't say what our complete color palette is going to be. So how we can actually start changing formulations for customers in the future. But it also falls back into what we were discussing earlier on as well. We really need a full-on cooperation level between ourselves and users and suppliers as well. So it's really an all expansive and holistic view to see what we can actually start putting together to make sure that we can get products, one that's still going to meet the need, but are actually starting to reduce the level of complexity and the level of severity about the products themselves. So it really is a complex, an incredibly complex position moving forward.
Word complexity again. You talked a lot about bio-based, and we are hearing, I mean, it's obvious that we're in a transition period. Are you feeling that in your own companies or in your markets that there's really more awareness for safety, for circular economy, for end of life, for sourcing responsibly and bio-based? I mean, do you see things changing in your various companies? Has the transition started in practice?
Well, we do see a lot of intentions. For example, we have a product that can be made either from bio-based raw materials or not. And if you make it bio-based, the price is multiplied by 4. So you tell your client, oh, you want bio-based methyl. Okay, fine. I can do it for you. Price won't be 2. Now it's 8. Well, and then the
No, thank you.
intention for biobased is not so strong anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, first, the problem is availability of the starting materials and price. It's very difficult to be competitive if you are not doing everything by yourself. If you're making the fermentation to get the bio-based material and then make your solvent, it's okay, you can manage. But if you need to source bio-based materials, it's difficult. So we see a change. We see people want to go for it, and it's not always the way we think, meaning that we have some input from downstream users that say, okay, your product is reprotoxic, I don't care, it's bio-based. Because then they can put a green leaf on the shampoo bottle and they're happy. I mean, yes.
Just to add that and to complete the bio-based part, sorry, I was working on the CEN level for that, and we have to understand that on the hazard and risk management, health and safety, bio-based or not bio-based, there's nothing changes if you produce the same substance. That must be in mind, because acetone, you say, or I always take the example of benzene. If you have a bio-based benzene, it will be as a benzene. It's benzene. It's intrinsic of the substance property. If you with bio-based, the only thing maybe an alternative is to create new substance, but you are falling in the same situation as you said before. With the new substance, you have to redo all the things, predictive hazard, and so on. So bio-based is an alternative on sustainability, on circular economy, or whatever may be there. But if we are focused on health and safety and environment, there's nothing changes, and it must be understood by everyone in the supply chain.
And maybe that's where safe and sustainable by design comes in and plays a role, right? If it becomes really mainstream, I mean, CEFIC is advocating for SSBD to become mainstream, not just a few niche front runners, but really mainstream, because then it forces in the scheme, you have to first ensure safety, and then in addition, you build the sustainability dimensions. And that would alleviate the concern that you come with a bio-based products to have to sell a bio-based, to have a label, but actually you may sacrifice on the hazard profile, and no one wants to do that, knowingly or not. But the thinking of safe and sustainable by design is good. Mm-hmm. It's complex in the realization, and I think let's see if the workshops and the work of the Commission manages to make it something practical and workable, but the thinking process is probably the right one.
Well, let's be honest, we're working on all fronts, but if you want to start making a totally new substance and you go for a bio-based one, and then you do your tox testing and it's not so good, well, then it hurts a lot.
Yes.
It will.
I think we're soon gonna start to be wrapping up. Sylvain, maybe just before I go to the one last question to everyone. Anything you want to react on either from what you heard, or maybe is the Commission thinking of any tools that could specifically help the smaller companies that don't always have the resources, but are willing to look into R&D alternatives? I don't know, new forms of aid support.
In the rich, I don't think so that we are
an ECHA department dedicated to SMEs. That's not in the plans.
That's not in the plan. No. That's why I'm saying that. I mean, also to be honest, transparent. I'm in the rich. No, in the rich we are trying to, I say, to obtain more information and to force downstream user to provide information. So I can help you, not be so interesting for you, but this is one step. We also want to increase enforcement. That and for that we will create an audit capacity, most probably in the Commission, to audit member states to ensure better enforcement. Particularly for some aspect that you've quoted. I noted all the challenge that you have in timing issue, that you need time to money. There essential uses, it's one notion that we really need to reflect on.
Yeah, that's true. We didn't have time to.
Because it depends on the criteria you want to implement. But if some of the criteria are linked to achievement of Green Deal, and at least we can say, okay, uses that are linked to achievement of Green Deal can be seen more as essential if there's no alternative or whatever. But at least then we can give more time to that kind of uses that are seen as essential. So even if your substance will be carcinogen, okay, but it's an essential use, then for most probably you have more time because you don't need to apply for authorization. Or I don't know what will happen, but at least if we use that notion in a positive way, it can help to save time, to increase predictability. But again, it's limited to essential uses. For other uses, it's difficult to tell you, okay, even if it's a carcinogen, you will have 20 years. But so it's one of the elements that we really need to reflect on. Hopefully, it will be part of our proposal. We will do our best to do it in a positive way. But we are really, it's a difficult issue, essential uses. We are really reflecting a lot to see how we can be implemented in a way that it will work, and not having hours of discussion to decide if a substance is, if a use is essential or not. So a lot of things need to reflect on. But it's
clearly.
But I noted all the challenges at least. And as you said, we are opening reach, but we are currently drafting it. So it's good to have this kind of meeting to alert us, because it's not so often that we are faced with downstream user, with SMEs. I mean, it's many CFIC and other big association, but to be faced with world case, it's very interesting because it alerts us on the difficulties.
So maybe a small challenge for the European Solvents Industry Group is, how to use essential use in a positive way in the future reach, to give maybe incentives to fast track certain processes to, because I think there's been a lot of negative as well on essential use. Personally, I think the biggest difficulty is this assessment of alternative, because you're saying yourself, you have many products in the pipeline, you work on a one-to-one, for the reason which, and it takes years to validate those alternatives in the different applications. So that, I think, is the part that is the most difficult. But still, maybe challenge for you, is there, any way that essential use can be used positively as a positive incentive? So thanks for raising that. One last question for each of you, the companies. If you had one single thing to ask the Commission today, based on what you heard, what would it be?
Stop.
You're not in the planet.
Please be nice. Please be nice.
Okay.
No, I mean,
So you think he's not nice?
To be more serious, no, I think the Commission doesn't realize what is it for small companies to get communication. It's start of the year, and 3 weeks later you have 3 new open dossiers on either new assessment of your substance, new information requirement for REACH, or stuff like this. And we are willing to respond to everything. We want to improve, but it takes so much time when you're only 2 persons to deal with all of this. Sometimes it feels like you're being targeted.
Thank you. I follow the value chain order. Carl, one thing you may wish to ask the Commission today?
Yeah, I suppose I'd really say, if we look in terms of the industry over the next 5 years, particularly on the solvent side, I really do actually see quite a colossal change being on the horizon for a lot of materials, and also some new options which are then starting to come into the market as well. That's pretty well necessary if we're going to move from where we are now and try and start moving towards the low carbon economy. But there's no single route to do that whatsoever. It has to be a route of incremental changes and incremental improvements in terms of what's been used and on the removal of materials in the market which are toxic. So all I would ask is, basically, in planning that route forward, just do as much as possible, which is actually going to give a sensible route forward for users, for suppliers as well, and ensure that it's science-based.
Good. I think it's a call for a transition pathway.
I think I can only add to that very little, because what I hear is reasonability. And that is what I think is the most important part of what the Commission can give us, is argue in reason, based on science, based on reality, and not on ideal things. We all want a safer environment. We all want a safer chemicals that do not pose hazards to environment, to human beings, etc. But it takes time. It takes a lot of effort. It takes more effort than we actually can give. My colleague here on the left is with 2. We are with 3 people working on this. There's only 8 hours a day and 5 days a week. And that's it. So reasonability, that's the most important thing I think the Commission can grant us.
Thank you. Joseph?
In the context of what we were talking about today, I can only ask for the EU to keep always in mind what consequences on a base outside of Europe, or in the context outside of Europe, might also apply. In our case, if we cannot use the substances in Europe anymore, as I said before, the product itself is perfectly free. So there's not even an obligation to declare a substance that is not in the final product anymore. So in our case, the worst case consequence would be in Europe, we would not be able to make winding wire anymore, while in the rest of the world with the harmful substances, it still will be made and it will be sold into Europe, and the customers won't see any difference at all, but it will kill the European industry. As a worst case scenario.
Yeah, of course.
No, but really.
Sylvain, is there one thing you want to ask the industry? What? Maybe you scared us too much already, but who knows?
For us, we are missing a lot of information.
Okay.
I think it's one of the elements, and it's why sometimes we are aware that the substance has some consumer uses, but because you don't know, so you put consumer uses in your dossier. And when you look at it, perhaps there is one person using 1 kilo of that for consumer uses. And then for the rest, it's 1,000 tons as an intermediate. But then when you do prioritization, you don't know the tonnage. Therefore, you prioritize that substance for nothing at the end. And so more information, but also a lot of proactiveness, saying that when you know that the substance most probably is a PBT or whatever, try to, in particular when you are a supplier, use more the use advice again, perhaps saying that please don't use that substance for consumer uses. Yeah. Use it really for what it's done for, and really so also communicate more on that. And I don't know how SDS can be more useful for that purposes. That because if it's clearly say that only for industrial uses, perhaps it helps inspector to ensure that
the future in Europe.
No dossier user is using that substance for consumer uses, for example, because it's not part of the chemical safety report and so on. So this could be an idea to communicate more and use SDS for that. Really highlight that it only be used for example, for industrial uses, and it can help also to better prioritize substances that really we need to act. Okay. Not perhaps some mistake that we did.
The good information means more reasonable regulatory management. Okay, I think that's it, Cornelia.
If there's no one with the hand, I mean the questions I see no hand raised. No. Maybe just also for your information, like I'm the manager of the European Solvents Group. I'm also helping in the product stewardship department with the safe use communication, because we have the GESs and there's a lot of double discussion. We start now with an ad hoc group, also with enforcement authorities already from Netherlands, Germany, and the Nordic countries, to discuss again minimum requirements and really see how to like for SDS and so on, what is really needed by the end user, and then again try to feed this back to as far as we can still do to the review process. So there will be 2 meetings, very short, and then hopefully we have something to present. Yeah.
Good.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Sylvie, for moderating very well. Thank you, Sylvian, for coming and stopping and answering questions. As I say, we'll put them all together and then hopefully we'll publish everything. Thank you for the presentation. Thank you for the panelists as well, Carl, online as well. So I think it's been a good information gathering on what's happening and also the challenges that we face. So so thank you very much. Alan, over to you to finish off.
Yes, apart, thank you for all those who intervene, and very interesting panel. Thank you for moderating it. That's from the seat is not that easy, but that has been very interesting. And thank you very much to Sylvain for joining us and have this very open exchange of views. From my side, I will close this meeting, and so wishes all the participants online to have a great lunch from their side, at home or at the office, and for the participant here in the room, I think the lunch just in the room nearby, this one, and we need to come back at 1:30 for the SVOC meeting.
Yeah, for those that are on SVOC, 1:30, but you can just stay here or have lunch, and then we continue on VOC emissions, our only environmental problem.
So thank you for
the invitation, and good luck.
Thank you very much, Sylvie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you, Gal.
Thank you very much. Bye. Bye-bye.
Would it be okay for you that
De l'utilibility. Tu restes 5 minutes ou tu
Je vais un petit truc. Ouais, mais rapidement.
Quite good.
Si on peut voir juste